Real, raw, and honest stories from founders who are in it and going for it. With your hosts, Mik and Trav.
This is the Growing For It podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Growing For It with Mik and Trav. This is Mik. I'm Trav. Mik, how you feeling today?
Incredible.
I love it. Last episode, we left off with closing our pre-seed round.
Mm-hmm.
We were flying high. We had pulled in the cash we needed to take Airflight to the next level, to turn the page to the next chapter.
Yeah.
And this episode, we're going to focus on basically the entire first half of 2021 and everything we did with the product development and getting the AF100 flying crane from a computer model into the real deal.
Yeah.
Standing there for the world to see.
Yeah, exactly. And we needed hands for that. So the first thing we did when we got the money was, okay, we need more hands, right? So we started hiring people. And we were actually lucky that we had an intern who lived just across the street.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Who wanted to work with us for his internship, right? And he knew everything about carbon fiber and stuff like that. So that was a huge help in the beginning.
He'd been making Siemens wind blades.
Yeah, exactly. It was perfect.
Yeah,
and
skilled guy.
Lucian. Shout out to Lucian.
Awesome guy as well.
And then we had him, but we also now we just got rid of our former founder who was the lead on the software. So we had to get someone in that could do something with software, right?
Yeah.
And
I think we essentially hired like 4 people or something.
Yeah,
during the 6-month period.
Exactly.
To like really start scaling up.
Exactly. And I remember looking back, our process that we know now is not good, right?
Yeah.
Is if
the hiring process.
Yeah. Was we posted on LinkedIn what we needed, which got us a huge amount of people from Pakistan and India, but we were looking for someone that could like start kind of tomorrow.
Yeah, a little more local than that.
A little more local than that.
Because they weren't remote jobs.
Exactly. And then we posted on the Danish like national page, right, where you can put up jobs. And looking back, what I think about that is just, then you get those people who actually see it. And typically, that's not the high-performing people because they're not looking for a job. They get headhunted.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. We did the best thing we knew how, which was like in the past when we've needed a job, you look at these sites and you see like what's available. Let me apply for it. So you just kind of figure that's how you hire people.
Yeah.
Because again, like we didn't have the most experience in the world. Like we've hired people before, but like, you know, this was something new. It's like one thing is hiring for a position where you can get someone in and say, this is your job description.
Yeah.
These are all the procedures you need to follow, and then you're going to get the end result that we know you're going to get because we've done it before. Like we're making something brand new here. We're making this big drone that we're like figuring it out as we go, and we need people who can figure it out with us and bring a serious amount of expertise, like specific expertise, like been there, done that before. Yeah. And we couldn't really find those people. We found people who were smart, they were nice, they were like good employees, they were skilled, but not so specifically that they could be like, this is how you solve that.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me take over here.
Yeah, it was almost like we were cooking a dish where we didn't have any recipe. And we kind of had to get people in who could do some of the small stuff that would end up being a recipe in the end, right? And yeah, you're absolutely right. We did the best we could. But then we actually get this CAD model, which is like a software program on a computer where you can design almost like drawing on a piece of paper, but just digitally, right? And I had in December up until January, more or less 90% designed the whole flying crane so that we could also raise money on that. And now it was time to actually start producing it.
Yeah.
And that's where Lucian came in and we started making molds. But the problem with hardware a lot of times is when you need to make these parts, just to make the parts, you need other parts and machines.
Tools.
And tools. And that's what is one of the things that makes hardware hard. And also one of the things why Elon Musk, he says, making a prototype, that's easy. Manufacturing thousands without any faults, that's difficult. Yeah. Much more difficult than he ever imagined with Tesla as well, right?
And we were on the easy part of that.
We were definitely on the easy part.
Growing For It is sponsored by Shaping New Tomorrow, State Energy, and Vestermark Consult.
You'll find links to our sponsors in the description below. Cheers, Trav.
Cheers.
Just to cut it out, so for everyone out there who's listening, our flying crane, which is a big, large drone, it consisted of 90% carbon fiber, just like you see in Formula 1, just like you see in the racing bikes.
We're talking like 3 feet, 1 meter tall, and like 4.5 meters in diameter.
It was huge.
Massive drone.
We'll pull up a picture of it right here.
Yeah, we got to find something. And it can lift 100 kilos, this prototype, which is the little one.
Exactly. About 220 pounds, as I remember. Yeah. And so that means we're dealing with extremely exotic materials here.
Yeah.
Very expensive. But to make these, you need tools. That's also very expensive because it comes from an expensive material.
Yeah.
And what we're doing here is, Lucian, we're milling out these shapes where we can cast the carbon fiber to. But for this specific carbon fiber that we're using, it was called pre-preg, what you use on exotic cars and Formula 1 and stuff. But it needs an oven. And you can imagine when you're making such a big drone, it's very large. So the normal ovens for carbon fiber that you can buy that's small and cheap, they don't fit the purpose anymore.
No, you had to make these huge parts, so you need a huge oven.
Exactly. And so what does Mikkel do? He goes on Google, and the cheapest one I can find, it's 2 by 2 by 2 meters, I think. It's $50,000, and I'm just like, we're not going to be able to afford that. And I'm like, okay, thinking, and I'm like, Travis, we need to build an oven, and I think we can do it out of a container. And then you became really resourceful.
Yeah, it was like, okay, so we had one of our employees. He could do all of the electrical stuff, but he also needed some hands. But we were kind of maxed out on who we could hire and everything at the time, and we didn't want to hire someone just for this. But I still had strong ties to the university college over there, and I said, okay, let me see if I can get a couple students to help out.
Yeah,
because they got a semester project or like a semester internship coming up, right? So I got 2 of the smartest guys from this automation engineering program where they were electricians and then becoming educated as automation engineers as well.
It was perfect.
Do you guys want a cool internship, and we're gonna make this giant oven and do that? So I got them to agree. They pulled in to the project, and MB and these 2 interns, they just took this container, like a shipping container,
10 feet shipping container,
and turned it into an oven.
Yeah.
And I think in total we spent like $3,000 on it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's still here at Airflight today.
Yeah. And it works great.
Yeah.
It worked really great.
Yeah. And that just goes to show that when you're in those early days, you just got to be resourceful.
It's so key.
Yeah. You got to really be scrappy. You got to make sure that you use the money in the best way. And spending $50K on an oven was just not the best way to go forward.
No, definitely not. That would have blown a huge chunk of our investment that we just raised.
Exactly.
And to get it outsourced as well, that also would do almost the same.
Yeah, and outsourcing at that point in time with what we were doing, it was just so expensive. Like getting a special carbon fiber part made by someone else, and then it come back and you realize that you made a little bit of a design mistake, and now you got to send it back.
Yeah, it's a prototype.
Yeah.
So you're constantly changing it.
Completely.
So if you send it out to get manufactured and it comes back and it doesn't fit or it doesn't work or you need to change it, well, then you got to pay double to have it done again.
Exactly.
So it's like, let's just build an oven again.
Exactly.
So that was pretty cool. I'm actually pretty proud of that story.
Yeah.
And it looks cool too, I think.
Exactly.
Like it's one of my favorite parts of the Airflight tour, showing that oven, because it's like, it's a really good like viewing point on that whole thing.
It shows a little bit about our mindset around the things there.
Yeah. And a cool part about this whole process too is like, now we got the oven and everything. You guys are starting to make the carbon for the drone, but then each week it's like a new piece of carbon fiber comes out of the oven, and like more and more pieces of the drone just start to materialize.
Yeah.
And it just goes from this like kind of cool computer model that you get the point of it to you starting to really see the scale of it when like the top plate of it comes out and everything, and the arms start coming out, like, and little pieces of drone keep getting produced each week, and you just really get that feeling of progress.
Yeah, there's. I remember there's one photo where I think you're photographing me. Maybe we can even find the picture and put it up where we're holding the the top plate for the AF100, right?
Yeah.
And there's just something magical about being a hardware startup, because once parts go from you having an idea inside your brain and a vision about what this part should look like and be, to doing the CAD model, right? And then either 3D printing it or milling it out of a piece of material. And then one day you're just standing with it in your hand. Like you have the model on one hand, looking at the computer, and then you have the physical product.
It exists.
Yeah, you made that.
Yeah.
That is definitely one of the best things about being a hardware startup, is you get something physical in your hands.
Yeah, and actually I think that's a super good point, because the level of emotion you feel when you actually have it physically, it's at least 10 times what you have when it's only an idea.
Yeah.
And going back to the last episode when we raised that pre-seed round, and also going forward in the other rounds that we've raised and everything, and when we've been alongside other people raising rounds, no matter what you do, like have something physical with you to bring with. When we would go out to pitches and stuff, we would bring like, the 1.5 meter propeller with, or like the motor that's like, like literally like this, when a normal drone motor is only like that.
Exactly.
And we would just have something physical that they could put their hands on and get that like physical feeling of the vision, not just our words and like a couple of PowerPoint slides and things like that.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't have that like impact.
Exactly. It's about creating that connection to the vision, right? And if it's only words and PowerPoint, no matter how good of a speaker you are, it's hard to connect, right?
Yeah.
But once you have something and you can see it, and it takes me back to how brilliant Steve Jobs was at presenting these things, right? But he didn't just pull the product up. He made all these different kind of things so that you could connect to the product, the size of it or the placement of it, how it worked, all of these things. And I think that's really important when you have a hardware product, is making that connection, making investors, customers feel connected to the product. And the only way you can do that is by showing them the physical thing.
100%.
Hey, Mik and Trav here. We're not only podcast hosts, we are also entrepreneurs who've raised millions of dollars for our own company.
That's right. And now we're helping founders like you do the same. If you want to work with us, DM us the word podcast on Instagram, which you can find in the description below. That's the word podcast.
We're getting to this stage, I think we're about April, May, where now we start to have the AF100 finish. I remember the parts are at least laying around, and you and me, we're going to Airflight. I think it's on a Saturday for this mind expanding process that we have that day. And we go to the workshop and like, Trav, we should assemble the drone. And he's like, are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. And then we use some hours on assembling it. And I just remember the feeling of looking at it and just being like, holy shit, we're in the game now.
Yeah, we're in the game.
Jesus Christ, look at that thing. Like, look at how big it is. Like, look at the props and look at the arms, and like you're just like, it was so mesmerizing.
It exists.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing when you have all the pieces, and of course a lot of it was assembled.
Yeah.
But there needed to be that final assembly, which we were gonna do on like Monday and Tuesday. And like you said, you're just like, let's get it done.
Yeah.
Like let's just do it.
Yeah.
Like
I couldn't help myself.
No, it was meant to be much more about strategy and things like that day. But it's like, now we have to do it.
Yeah.
And then we did. And of course, it's like you're the man who built most of it, but me on the commercial side, I was able to like do a lot of screws and stuff like that to help assemble. But then, like you said, then you just take a step back and again, not just that you have a part that is now like manifested into physical reality, but the whole product is like the whole thing. It's right there,
and it's huge. As you just said, it's like a drone that is 1.5 meters tall. And 4.5 meters by 4.5 meters on the outer perimeters. Like, it is huge, right?
Yeah.
And at that point in time, it's the biggest quadcopter that we've ever seen. It's still not the world's biggest, but it's definitely one of the world's biggest quadcopters that has ever been manufactured.
Yeah.
And is still flying and able to fly. It is also for sale. But it's just, it's hard to describe how captivating it was to just take a step back, look at it, and be like, holy shit, that was just an idea in December and in a digital software, and now it's standing there.
Yeah.
And then it was like, on to testing it.
Yeah, that was a huge milestone.
Yeah.
That was a huge going from like, we can probably build it. Like we can build it to like it's built.
Yeah.
So now we got to make it fly.
Yeah.
And it was just like, boom, milestone.
Yeah.
And it's so, you just have to savor those wins.
Yeah.
Because they sometimes in these processes, they can be so far and few between that you literally like your brain is like, awesome, it's done. Like, no, we got to make it fly. Like, but it doesn't fly yet. And you're already months ahead in the strategy. But it's, it's so important just to take a breath and be like, this was a great win.
Yeah. And I think we did that in that point, actually. But I even now just reflecting on it, I really just feel that day so important. But you're absolutely right. As an entrepreneur, you just set the next milestone.
Yeah.
So you almost don't feel it. And it's so important that when you reach those milestones, maybe even, taking some time off to just like really suck it in, because we all know you just set the next milestone. And then the early milestone that you now reach, it doesn't have the same value anymore, but it is still a big stepping stone.
Yeah, 100%. But then on Monday, instead of finishing the assembly, the team came into the drone being done.
Yep.
And then it became about finishing off all of the electronics, getting all of the wiring finished off perfectly, getting the software done so that we can actually use it to fly instead of like just having the mechanical structure done, which was also a process of itself. And a really cool day came when we were going to like really fire up the motors. We had it bolted down on a rig that could move, so that
I think actually it was meant to be completely still, but I think it
was locked in place.
Yeah, it was locked in place. But the way that I had made it, it was able to just do a little bit of movement, and I don't think that was a good thing though.
Yeah. We did a lot of different tests and stuff like that, like testing each motor individually and things like that on test stands and whatever. But like one really crazy story that I can remember was when we were doing a load test. So we're going to have the drone bolted down and then fire the engines up pretty close to full speed to make sure that the arms and the whole structure and everything can take the load of the power and all of that.
Yeah.
Because again, it hasn't been fully tested yet. It's been like theoretically tested based on all the calculations of the carbon and everything, but now we're going to like really fire it up and see what it can do. And I was really confident in the product. So we made like we called it kind of like a bunker, but this wall to stand behind for 100% protection.
Exactly.
But I really wanted to record it. And the engineers, they needed to be up against the
glass,
the polycarbonate, the protection to see what was going on. So I couldn't really film it well. So I just kind of like peeked around the edge of the bunker, and I was standing like with half of me out of the bunker to film it, just to get a really good shot. And then like all of a sudden something went wrong, and one of the motors just ripped itself off of the arm. Yeah. So like load test failed on that one. And the motor and the props, it just went flying towards me, and I just jumped back inside of the bunker, and it was like just in time. I didn't get hit by anything, but it was like that close to me. Yeah. It was like literally this close to me.
We got to show the video. The video's the video is gonna come right here.
Yeah, this isn't a show and tell episode for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
This is, you guys can see. If you're not watching this on video, you got to find a video version. But that really scared the shit out of me, actually. And I was like, okay, we had kind of done stuff very, startup, very, a couple of people in a garage doing it this way and that way. But it's like, okay, this is a serious machine. We're a serious company now. We're funded. We have employees. Like, what if it wasn't me who was peeking around? What if it was one of the other guys? How bad would I have felt if they had just gotten sliced by a prop or something like that? And it was like, okay, time to level up.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, you started to see the seriousness of that. It was not a drone anymore. It was more like an aircraft.
Yeah.
Like a small helicopter.
I mean, this motor that ripped itself off, it's like a 44 horsepower electric engine with a 1.5 meter prop on it.
Yep.
Like, this is not a toy.
Nope.
This is a meat grinder.
Yeah. And then we of course like
that was in June 2020, end of June 21.
Exactly. And then we of course within a very short period of time get the problem solved and fix the arms and reinforce the areas. And now we're kind of back and we do a load test more, which goes fine. And then you go back to the States for the normal States holidays in the summer for 4 weeks, and then we have our first flight test.
Yep.
And I'm a bit of, maybe not a bit. I'm really impatient. But I actually don't think we could have done more because that's what I was asking to prepare for it. At that point in time, of course, we could have done more. But at that time, I said to myself, "Are we really ready? Are we really ready?" And I was like, I couldn't come up with something. We just needed to go for it, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you just fucking have to go. And then we pull it out, and it's a beautiful sunny day. And we're gonna show this clip as well. It's a beautiful sunny day.
Yeah, we have to
put it out on the grass, and we wanted to do our first flight test. And let's just play the video so that you can kind of see how it goes.
Yeah, right.
And so what happens is we go up, we have some difficulties with the software, and then suddenly the drone just takes off into the woods and like crashes. Or as we call it, a hard landing, right? Luckily,
flew straight into the woods.
Yeah. Luckily, it just took out some props and something that could be repaired within a short period of time. So nothing really happened. But the emotions at that point in time was like, fuck, what are we gonna do? And I remember calling you, and I was like, yeah, dude, Trav, we just crashed the drone. It's not as bad as it could have been, but it was not good. And also kind of you are so confident in the product, right? We've had all this momentum going, and then suddenly you're like, shit, we kind of don't know what we're doing here. Feeling, right?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because it's like the beginning of the year, we get funded, we're hiring people, like momentum is just going like crazy. Okay, there was like the faux pas with the load test, and there's some other things that don't go well, but on average you're just going only in one direction, which is like it's going up, everything's going well, we are like rocketing towards the goal, and then you have like a big setback, which is like crashing this thing, which is like not a cheap thing to crash. It's not an easy thing to repair. It's like it just makes you question, like, can we actually do it? And it's like obviously what goes up has to come down. When you make things like drones and aircrafts, they're gonna crash for sure. Like that's just a part of it. But nonetheless, you already, when you have that like imposter syndrome that comes with every entrepreneurial journey, like something like this major, you're just like, is it really us who's going to do this? And also there are some other things too, because at the beginning of the year we were funded, but then we've only been spending money since then. We're starting to run out of cash. You're kind of hoping the flight test was going to go great so we can go into the next round of fundraising, but it kind of went the other direction. And you're kind of like, okay, what do we got to kind of come up with a plan here. And for me too, that was also crazy because I remember I was actually like driving somewhere, and I was driving to another city in the United States, and you get a call like, oh yeah, Trav, so we crashed the drone and it's like kind of broken, but I think it's not as bad as it could be. And I'm just sitting there like, oh shit, like, okay, I feel pretty helpless right now because I'm like on the other side of the world, not really able to support you, and I felt bad that you were there having to like manage the whole thing. And yeah, that was a tough one.
That was a tough day at the office. But with time, you realize that if you want to defy one of the laws of nature, then nature wins sometimes.
Yeah. So it was a whole roller coaster ride, right? Like as we said, flying high at the beginning of the year, like coasting through the middle part, building, all of a sudden, running out of money, crashed the drone, totally other end of this spectrum, and it's like, well, now we got to come up with a plan for the next part. And I think we're going to explain that in one of our future episodes.
I think that's a good idea.
So thanks for listening to this one, and see you next time. You've been listening to the Growing Forward podcast with your hosts, Mik and Trav.